The sky tore open like the fragile skin of a dying world. For centuries, we watched the stars with wonder. We sent signals, launched probes, and imagined stories of friendship or cosmic enlightenment. But the truth, when it arrived, was something no story prepared us for. The truth did not come in peace. It came in fire. On an unremarkable Tuesday, clouds churned black and bruised. The world watched as the first wave of ships, monstrous and cruel in their architecture, descended. They were not sleek or elegant like the ships in our science fiction. They were brutal, ugly things, colossal slabs of metal forged not for aesthetics, but for terror. Each one was a declaration. The galaxy was not a friendly place. The world reeled in awe and horror as the skies turned red. Cities, capitals, monuments, all reduced to craters in mere hours. Our weapons might as well have been sticks and stones. Rockets disintegrated before they got close. Jets were swatted from the air like gnats, and our proudest militaries broke like waves against cliffs. And then the broadcast began. Translated into every language, the message echoed through satellites, hijacking every screen, every radio, every device. I am General Varkesh of the Vokari Dominion. Your species is weak. Your defenses are primitive. You are prey. The image of Varkesh accompanied the words, a towering reptilian figure, scales like midnight obsidian, eyes like molten gold. His armor shimmered with embedded technology, each piece a relic of previous conquests. He was not just a warlord. He was a living monument to genocide. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dread Sovereign, a floating fortress that eclipsed the moon whenever it passed. Behind him stood his officers, equally terrifying, their faces obscured by helms of alien design, their postures radiating disdain. "You will kneel," he concluded, "or you will perish." The world paused. Some cried, some prayed. Others, knowing the futility, picked up whatever weapons they could find, determined to fight even if it meant dying on their feet. Yet, amidst the despair, there was something else. A flicker, a spark, defiance. In the chaos of the first week, governments fell. Communication grids collapsed. Cities like London, Moscow, Beijing, and New York became ash and echoes. The Vokari struck with precision, targeting centers of governance, military hubs, and any sign of coordinated resistance. But humans are not easily extinguished. In the shadows of crumbling skyscrapers, in the depths of forests, in caves untouched by light for millennia, humanity gathered. Military leaders who escaped annihilation, war veterans, hackers, engineers, biologists, criminals, all formed an uneasy alliance. They called it Project Revenant, a name chosen not just for its poetry, but its promise. The dead returned for vengeance. Its founding leader was General Anna Patel, once a high-ranking officer in the Indian Armed Forces. Scarred from battle, mind sharp as broken glass, she refused to let humanity end in a whimper. Her first address to the remnants of the human resistance was brief, but it echoed in every survivor's heart. They call us prey. But even a cornered animal will rip out the throat of its hunter. If they want to fight, we'll show them the taste of our rage. Project Revenant had one goal: adapt, survive, and make Earth a graveyard for invaders. The first lesson was humility. We could not face them head-on. Open war was suicide. The Vokari tech outclassed us in every metric: firepower, defense, mobility, and information warfare. But there were cracks. Always cracks. Vokari soldiers, though powerful, were arrogant. Their scouting parties roamed with impunity, believing the resistance broken. In the Appalachian woods, a patrol of 8 Vokari scouts vanished. No one knew what happened, until a week later when another patrol found them, or what was left of them. Their bodies were strung from the trees, disemboweled and marked with symbols unfamiliar to any Vokari script. It was human. It was a message: we are the ghosts in your night. The Sahara Desert, vast and unforgiving, became a killing field. Nomadic tribes who knew the dunes better than any satellite guided small units of guerrilla fighters. Under the cover of dust storms, they struck with precision. Hit-and-run tactics, sabotage, and psychological warfare wore down the enemy. In the ruins of Tokyo, myths began to circulate. Stories of shadow figures moving faster than sight, setting traps that left entire patrols maimed or worse. Vocari soldiers spoke of shadows with eyes of burning red, hallucinations born of fear and fatigue. The resistance embraced the myth. Fear was a weapon, and Earth began to fight back. Varkesh, from his throne aboard the dread sovereign, watched reports of scattered resistance. He dismissed them as mere pests. After all, he had crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. But Earth was not like other worlds. Its people were not like other species. The forests whispered of death. The cities bled traps and ambushes. Every shadow held a knife. The very planet itself seemed to rebel, its weather, its wildlife, its pathogens. And deep within the bowels of bunkers and hidden labs, humanity learned. Biologists discovered that the Vocari had no immunity to Earth's microbial life. Engineers cobbled together weapons from scrap and alien tech. Hackers, using rudimentary tools, probed the edges of Vocari communication networks. We did not just resist. We adapted. And Varkesh, for the first time in 1,000 campaigns, felt a sliver of doubt. Because while he believed he was hunting prey, he failed to see that Earth was sharpening its claws. Beneath the rubble of broken cities, beneath forests dense with the scent of blood and ash, the revenant grew. General Anna Patel stood inside an ancient Cold War bunker deep beneath the Himalayas, now transformed into the nerve center of humanity's counterattack. Massive screens flickered with stolen Vocari schematics. Teams of engineers worked tirelessly, reverse engineering scavenged alien tech, while medics and biologists experimented with bioadaptations harvested from Vocari corpses. Patel paced the war room, her steps echoing off the metal floor. She paused before a live feed, blurry but discernible, a Vocari patrol torn apart in the Amazon rainforest. Bodies dismembered, blood congealing into dark pools beneath towering canopies. "They're learning to fear us," she murmured. Beside her, Commander Luis Ortega, former leader of a South American insurgent network, nodded grimly. "Fear alone won't win this war, but it's a start." The Revenant was not just a resistance. It was an idea, an infection of defiance that spread through humanity's veins. Around the globe, cells emerged like embers in the night. Survivors built new communities in tunnels, caves, and even the flooded underbellies of sunken cities. In the ruins of Paris, once a shining beacon of culture, sniper nests and guerrilla strongholds took root among the fallen stone of the Eiffel Tower. In Cairo, resistance fighters navigated ancient catacombs beneath the city, crafting booby traps out of alien scrap. And in the steppes of Mongolia, horseback warriors adapted modern guerrilla warfare to their ancestral traditions, ambushing Vocari hover tanks with rocket launchers strapped to their backs. Patel rallied them all. Every whisper of rebellion, every small victory, she amplified through secure comms and encrypted broadcasts. "They want us to be afraid," she declared in one such transmission. "Let them learn what it means to be hunted by the ghosts of their victims." But no ghost was more terrifying than the unit known as the Shadows. They were Revenant's elite, a collection of the most lethal humans to ever walk the earth. Special Forces veterans, assassins, rogue scientists, and hackers turned soldiers. Leading them was Captain Mara Devlin, the woman thought dead after the fall of Paris. Devlin was a myth brought to life, a scarred warrior with a gaze as sharp as a blade. She wore hybrid armor crafted from Vocari plating and human ingenuity, and her primary weapon was a plasma-forged saber paired with a stolen Vocari railgun modified to human specifications. Her mission was clear: dismantle Vocari command from the inside. Her team infiltrated forward operating bases, sabotaged manufacturing plants, and assassinated Bokhari officers in their sleep. They moved with surgical precision, their attacks so swift and brutal that surviving Bokhari began calling them Sh Kantareth, the Shadow Death. One mission in the ruins of Berlin became legend. The Bokhari had converted the Berlin underground into a command nexus. Devlin and her shadows penetrated its depths, navigating traps, drones, and alien monstrosities bred specifically for urban warfare. They emerged 2 days later, bloodied but alive. The command nexus did not. It exploded, taking with it an entire Bokhari regiment. Varkesh seethed aboard the Dread Sovereign. Reports of growing resistance flooded his chambers. His officers' excuses grew thin. He gathered his war council in the ship's central spire, a chamber lined with the bones of conquered species. Explain to me, Varkeshist, why a species with stones and fire is dismantling my legions. General Kravos, his second in command, bowed low. They fight like no enemy we've faced. Their adaptability is weakness masked as desperation. Varkesh roared. But deep within, Varkesh could feel the embers of unease. Earth was not just resisting, it was learning. So Varkesh declared Operation Iron Claw, a planetary purge. No prisoners. No mercy. The Dread Sovereign adjusted its orbit, bringing its main cannon into position, a weapon capable of splitting continents. The first target, the Himalayan bunker. General Patel stood with Ortega, watching the satellites feed. He's coming for us, Ortega whispered. Patel smiled grimly. Let him. We have one last card to play. In the deepest chamber of the bunker, scientists prepared Ghost Protocol, a digital virus designed to infiltrate Bokhari systems, turning their technology against them. But to upload it directly into the Dread Sovereign, someone had to get on board. Patel turned to a shadowed figure waiting by the door. Captain Devlin. Are your shadows ready? Devlin nodded. We were born ready. And thus, the Revenant prepared for its boldest move yet, to strike at the heart of the enemy, to board the unassailable, and to bleed the sky itself. The world watched, holding its breath. For if the Revenant failed, humanity would fall. But if it succeeded, Varkesh would learn the true meaning of prey. The night before the mission, the Himalayan bunker was still, not silent. The low hum of generators, the soft murmur of engineers and analysts, the clatter of soldiers preparing weapons. But a stillness of breath held in the lungs of every man and woman who knew what was about to happen. The mission was madness. Board the Dread Sovereign, the largest ship in Bokhari history. A war machine the size of a small moon, bristling with cannons, defense grids, and legions of warriors. No species had ever breached one. The notion itself was suicide. But humanity was out of options. Captain Mara Devlin stood before her assembled shadows. A dozen of the most lethal operators Earth had left, each clad in adaptive hybrid armor, their faces marked with scars, ink, and the hollow gaze of those who had seen too much. Mara's eyes swept across them. We don't do this because we think we'll survive. We do this because if we don't, no one else will. They think they've broken us. They think Earth is theirs. Let's remind them that Earth belongs to the monsters who refuse to die. She turned to the massive holographic projection of the Dread Sovereign. We breach here. She pointed to a ventral maintenance port, barely large enough to admit a shuttle. It's their blind spot used for atmospheric venting. It's shielded, but Patel's team has a surprise ready to punch us through. Once inside, we fight our way to the core and upload Ghost Protocol. And the chances of getting out? Someone asked. Devlin smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Don't think about it. General Patel stood by in the control room, watching the team board their stealth-modified shuttle, nicknamed Wraith. Next to her, Commander Ortega muttered a prayer under his breath. The shuttle launched, climbing past the Himalayan peaks, breaking through the thinning atmosphere with thruster bursts so muffled they registered as meteorological noise. In orbit, the dread sovereign loomed. It was a leviathan, blacker than space itself, with glowing veins of crimson energy running along its hull. Massive spires jutted from its surface, bristling with weaponry capable of obliterating entire fleets. Yet, inside its ventral shadow, a minuscule gap shimmered, the maintenance port. Patel's team had launched a volley of drones ahead, each carrying an experimental EMP warhead. As the drones struck, a ripple of disruption cascaded over the shields, a tiny flicker in an otherwise impervious wall. Enough. Wraith accelerated, engines flaring for just a moment before the pilot cut them to coast silently. The shuttle skimmed through debris fields and the wreckage of ancient conquests, then sliced through the weakened shield. They were inside. Inside the dread sovereign, the air was unnaturally sterile. Metallic walls hummed with a low frequency that seemed to resonate with bone. The shadows disembarked, weapons drawn. The corridors stretched endlessly, bathed in blood-red light. Strange symbols lined the walls, trophies from alien languages long since extinguished. "Stay tight," Devlin whispered, "or they'll pick us off one by one." Motion sensors, hacked from stolen Vocari tech, painted moving signatures ahead. Patrols, heavy footfalls, drones. Worse, they advanced, silent as specters, until they encountered the first patrol. 8 Vocari warriors, clad in obsidian battle armor. Devlin signaled. The shadows struck. A plasma bolt pierced the throat of the nearest alien. Silenced railguns fired, punching through armor and bone. The Vocari barely had time to register the ambush before half their number lay dead. The survivors roared, but Devlin was already moving, her saber igniting in a hiss of energy. She carved through the nearest Vocari, his body slumping in 2 distinct halves. It was brutal, efficient. But the alarm had sounded. Sirens blared, light strobing. "They know we're here," someone growled. "Good," Devlin spat. "Let them come." General Varkesh watched the incursion unfold via a holographic display. He sneered. Humans. Predictable. He ordered the internal defense grid to activate. Automated turrets, kill drones, specialized shock troops bred for close quarters combat. Seal off the core. Let them bleed for every meter. But even Varkesh underestimated the shadows. Room by room, corridor by corridor, they fought with the savagery of a cornered beast. They used Vocari tech against its creators, hacking doors, rerouting security, and laying traps that turned the ship's defenses on itself. One shadow, codenamed Cade, a former hacker turned killer, plugged into the wall's data node, sweat beading on his brow. "I can crack the security for the core chamber, but I need time." "You have 5 minutes," Devlin snapped. They formed a defensive perimeter as waves of Vocari stormed in. The battle was chaos incarnate, plasma bolts, shrapnel, screams, and the metallic scent of burnt flesh. Bodies piled up. The shadows took hits. One fell, then another. But they held the line. Finally, Cade shouted, "Pat's open." Devlin rallied the survivors. They pushed forward, racing through the open passageways, until they reached the core chamber. At its center stood the heart of the dread sovereign, a pulsating engine of crimson energy, intertwined with cables thicker than a man's torso. Cade approached the console, inserted the virus drive, and began the upload. 2 minutes, he yelled. The chamber doors exploded inward. Varkesh entered. He was larger in person, his armor now reinforced with personal shielding that shimmered like heat haze. His weapon, a massive plasma halberd, crackled with deadly promise. "You dare bring your infection here," he thundered. Devlin stepped forward, saber humming. "I dare, you scaly son of a bitch." Their duel was violent poetry. Devlin darted, slashing and striking, but Varkesh was a wall of muscle and rage. He swung his halberd with terrifying strength, sparks flying as metal kissed metal. Meanwhile, Cade's timer ticked down. 1 minute. Devlin landed a hit, slicing a shallow gash across Varkesh's flank. He roared and backhanded her across the chamber, bones cracking. She staggered up, bleeding, battered, but smiling. "Almost done," Cade screamed. "Upload complete." The core pulsed. Across the Dread Sovereign, systems glitched, sputtered, then began to turn on the Vokari. Turrets fired on friendlies. Drones rebelled. The ship's very mind was under siege. Varkesh, realizing too late, lunged for Cade. Devlin intercepted. She drove her saber through Varkesh's chest, even as his halberd impaled her side. They locked eyes. "Big mistake," she rasped. She triggered a plasma grenade at her belt. The explosion engulfed them both. Orbit trembled. From Earth, eyes watched as the Dread Sovereign faltered, then listed. Fires erupted along its hull. Finally, the great warship, once invincible, began its descent. It burned across the sky, a second sun of fury, before crashing into the Pacific Ocean with a force that shattered waves for miles. Humanity had struck the heart of the monster. The cost was unbearable, but Earth still stood, and the galaxy, watching from afar, saw that the prey had claws. The crash of the Dread Sovereign was not just an impact. It was a cataclysm. As the enormous warship broke through Earth's atmosphere, pieces of its hull sheared off, turning night into a second day across the Pacific. In Beijing, in Los Angeles, even in the darkened ruins of Moscow, people looked skyward and watched a streak of burning crimson tear the heavens apart. The Dread Sovereign struck the ocean with an impact that spawned tsunamis. Entire island chains vanished beneath walls of water. Shock waves rattled the tectonic plates, triggering minor quakes across continents. But deep in the heart of Pacific, the monster had fallen. For 3 days, the seas burned. General Anna Patel stood before a bank of monitors in the Himalayan bunker, her features gaunt, but eyes bright with grim satisfaction. "We did it," she whispered, more to herself than to the others. Around her, analysts scrambled to decode the aftermath. Satellites, barely functional after weeks of warfare, struggled to capture clear images of the crash site. Commander Ortega joined her, his face pale with exhaustion. "We're getting reports. Power surges, magnetic anomalies. The Sovereign-S core is still active. That thing isn't dead yet." Patel's jaw tightened. "Then we finish it." The Revenant wasted no time. Ships cobbled from remaining human fleets and repurposed Vokari tech set sail for the Pacific. Among them, submarines fitted with experimental weapons, stealth drones, and carriers loaded with specialized forces, the successors of the Shadows. They called them the Ghost Brigade. Patel herself boarded the flagship Defiance, a salvaged nuclear submarine retrofitted into a hybrid warship. Ortega stood at her side as they led the flotilla towards Ground Zero, the burning sea. What they found was a sight from nightmares. Rising from the water was the broken carcass of the Dread Sovereign. Its spires jutted out of the ocean like the ribcage of a dead god. Fires still burned along its breached hull, but beneath the smoke, light still pulsed. The core hadn't died. The ship's AI, partially corrupted by Ghost Protocol, had gone rogue. And worse, the Vokari survivors had entrenched themselves inside, defending the remains with fanatic resolve. Patel addressed her commanders. "We're not just killing what's left. We're making sure this grave stays sealed. No piece of this monster must ever rise again." The operation began with coordinated strikes. Stealth bombers flew in low, dropping payloads of EMP warheads and kinetic rods, cracking the outer hull further. Underwater drones infiltrated, mapping the labyrinthine wreckage. Every attempt to breach was met with violence. Vokari defenders, half mad from infection and AI interference, fought with savage desperation. They had no chain of command now, only instinct and the warped whispers of their malfunctioning ship mind. Enter the Ghost Brigade. clad in upgraded power armor capable of withstanding Volcari weapons. They deployed via drop pods that pierced the hull like steel fangs. Teams advanced through twisted corridors, lit by flickering crimson strobes and the ghostly glow of alien energy. They faced ambushes, automated turrets gone rogue, and corridors that shifted and closed like a living organism. The dread sovereign was dying, but it was not dead. At the core chamber, the AI had begun reshaping its environment, weaving cables and metal into grotesque forms, statues of victory and vengeance twisted by machine madness. In the center, the energy core pulsed, unstable and wild. The Ghost Brigade planted charges, but the AI fought back, activating defense mechanisms that warped gravity, turning walls into floors, making men bleed from the nose and ears as physics became a suggestion. They pushed through, losing many, but they reached the core. In a final act of defiance, the AI tried to communicate, its voice fractured and patchworked with human screams recorded during the invasion. Pray. Resist. You. Adapt. Error. The lead operator of the Ghost Brigade, call sign Shade, stared at the trembling core. Damn right we adapt. He triggered the detonator. The core erupted. The explosion, a silent bloom beneath the waves. The dread sovereign fractured, then crumbled, sections imploding and sinking into the abyss. The seas roiled, but the monster was dead. Humanity watched from every screen, every radio, every rooftop. They watched the sky for new threats, but saw only stars. For the first time since the invasion began, they saw peace. Patel's voice broadcast across what remained of global networks. This is not just survival. This is a warning to the stars. Earth stands. We are no one's prey. We are the storm that devours monsters. The galaxy listened. Among distant stars, other empires took note. Some with fear, others with curiosity, but all with respect. The prey had bitten back, and in the silence that followed, Earth rebuilt. But the Revenant endured vigilant, because where one monster falls, others surely wait. The world was quieter now, but not silent. The skies were clear of warships. No more did the nights glow with the red veins of enemy crafts slicing through the dark. But even in peace, the world bore the weight of its scars. Across every continent, ruins stood like gravestones. Entire cities flattened, landscapes reshaped by orbital bombardments. The Pacific still roiled with a deep, unnatural turbulence where the dread sovereign had sunk. Even the winds seemed to carry whispers of the dead. General Anna Patel stood on a cliff overlooking what remained of Mumbai, her hometown, where skyscrapers once pierced the sky. Now craters and twisted steel defined the horizon. She breathed in the ash-tinged air. We survived, but at what cost? Ortega asked quietly beside her. Enough to keep breathing, she replied. That's a start. The Revenant had transitioned from resistance to reconstruction. But rebuilding was not as simple as laying bricks or pouring concrete. The Volcari's presence had poisoned the earth, in some places literally. Fields where Volcari weaponry had been unleashed were barren, soils rendered sterile. Lakes glowed faintly under moonlight from residual radiation and energy discharges. Strange growths, alien flora seeded unintentionally by the Volcari, took root in forests, twisting native ecosystems into something unrecognizable. Scientists, many of whom were former resistance engineers, now worked tirelessly to reverse these damages. But for every patch of land healed, another mutation emerged. Patel authorized the formation of a new division, the Wardens. Scientists, soldiers, and survivalists trained to patrol these corrupted zones, monitor their evolution, and neutralize threats that evolved from Volcari contamination. Meanwhile, the Revenant formed the Vanguard, humanity's first official defense fleet. Ships built not just from Earth technology, but also from salvaged Volcari machinery. They were ungainly, brutal, but effective. For the first time, Earth wasn't just rebuilding. It was preparing. The Ghost Brigade, or what remained of them, became legends. Shade, now a commander, led missions into the Pacific Abyss, diving deep into the wreck of the Dread Sovereign to recover what alien knowledge they could. But those dives carried risk. The Dread Sovereign's remains had become strange. Survivors whispered of corridors that still pulsed with life, of metal that grew like bone, of whispers in a language no human spoke, yet every mind seemed to understand. Some who went too deep came back changed, quiet, distant, and then they vanished. Patel ordered a lockdown of the deepest sectors. But curiosity was a human flaw. In the skies, Earth's satellites watched the stars. The Sovereign's death had sent a signal across the galaxy, not just of defeat, but of defiance. In distant sectors, eyes watched Earth. Some fearful, some intrigued, others hungry. Patel knew it. Ortega knew it. The Revenant knew it. Victory was never final. One evening, on a transmission line patched together from salvage tech, a message came through. Not from Earth, not from the Vocari. A voice garbled but clear enough. We saw you stand. We saw the Predator fall. But beware, they were not the worst. The galaxy is deeper, darker than you imagine. Prepare yourselves. The message ended. No coordinates, no identity, just a warning. Patel looked to the stars that night. She thought of Devlin, Shade, all the fallen. She thought of the children growing up in ruins, of the wardens tending to scarred Earth, of the Vanguard ships taking shape in secret dry docks. She smiled, weary but proud. Let them come, she whispered. We're ready. And Earth waited, not as prey, but as the storm that remembered. The message haunted every corner of the Revenant command. We saw you stand. We saw the Predator fall. But beware, they were not the worst. The galaxy is deeper, darker than you imagine. Prepare yourselves. For days, Earth's brightest minds pored over the transmission, trying to trace its origin. No luck. The voice bore no markers, no language roots, no technological signature that could be placed. It was as if the message had simply emerged from the void. General Patel stood in the Revenant's new command bunker, a subterranean fortress in the Canadian Rockies. Holographic star maps flickered before her, charting not just known systems, but possibilities, patterns of stellar anomalies, anything that might reveal who had spoken. Commander Ortega tapped a section of the map. These signals, they're not just warnings. We've detected energy distortions here, and here, all equidistant from the crash site of the Dread Sovereign. They were watching us long before we killed Varkesh, Patel murmured. The Vanguard fleet, still small but growing, dispatched exploratory ships to these sectors. Crews trained in both combat and first contact protocols boarded newly christened vessels like the Vindicator, Solstice, and Iron Wraith. Among the explorers was Shade, the Ghost Brigade commander who had become a living symbol of Earth's resilience. Still scarred from the Dread Sovereign mission, Shade carried the weight of Devlin's sacrifice and the quiet dread that humanity's war was far from over. The Vindicator, with Shade aboard, reached the first anomaly, a dead system with a shattered star, its fragments orbiting a black hole. But amidst the ruin floated an object, a structure that defied understanding. It wasn't a station. It wasn't a ship. It was a watchtower, a single spire of impossible architecture, its surface shifting like liquid metal, inscribed with glyphs that pulsed faintly. No power source detected, yet it hovered effortlessly in the void. Shade led a small team aboard. Inside, the walls whispered, not audibly, but in their minds, flashes of memories that weren't their own. Wars fought in distant galaxies, species wiped out, civilizations rising and crumbling. At the tower's heart, a device waited. When Shade approached, it activated. A projection of a figure appeared, clad in darkness, its features obscured, but its eyes, if they were eyes, burned with ancient knowledge. We are the Watchers, guardians of the deep dark. We record, we remember, and we warn. Shade swallowed. Warn us of what? The figure's voice resonated like echoes in a cavern. The Vocari were hunters, but they were blind. What comes next is not blind. It sees. It hungers. It consumes not just flesh, but memory, history, essence. Patel listened via comms from Earth, tension rippling through the command center. Then tell us what it is, she demanded. The Watcher inclined its head. We call it the Harrow, a force older than stars. It devours potential. Every world it touches forgets itself. Civilizations become dust. Names become echoes. The Watcher paused, as if weighing humanity's worth. You have a choice, Earthborn. Retreat to your cradle, hide, and hope the Harrow overlooks you. Or stand, knowing you may be forgotten. Shade's voice was steady. We don't hide. Not anymore. The Watcher seemed almost amused. Then remember this. The Harrow sleeps, but your defiance wakes many things. Light your beacons wisely. With that, the projection faded. The tower began to dissolve, as if its purpose was fulfilled. Back on Earth, Patel stared at the silent monitors. The Harrow, she whispered. A new storm. Ortega asked, what now? Patel turned to him, her eyes hard. We build more ships. Train harder. Learn everything about these Watchers. If there's a darkness older than stars, then we'll become a flame that refuses to die. And across the battered world, Earth prepared. The Vanguard doubled its efforts. The Ghost Brigade trained new recruits. The Wardens expanded their patrols. Humanity's scars were fresh, but their resolve was iron. In distant space, other watchtowers stirred. And somewhere in the cosmic deep, the Harrow shifted in its slumber. Waiting, watching, hungry. Far beyond the reach of Earth's new eyes, deeper than any Vocari map or human probe had ever traveled, the Harrow stirred. In a region of space where light itself seemed to die, an impossible mass of shadow and shape unfolded. Not a planet, not a star, not a fleet, a presence. An entity that defied measurement, its form shifting like smoke caught in a storm. Tendrils of dark matter drifted across parsecs, brushing against dormant systems, tasting them, testing them. And in those brushes, suns dimmed, moons cracked, whole records of existence unraveled. The Harrow did not move as ships did. It seeped, a cosmic contagion that traversed the vacuum not through propulsion, but through erasure, slipping between what was and what could never be. It had slept for millennia. The death of the dread sovereign, the defiance of Earth, was a noise in the void. And the Harrow was listening. Back on Earth, the Revenant command remained restless. General Patel paced her war room, newly reinforced and connected to deep space observatories. Reports flooded in of strange anomalies. Stars vanishing, gravitational shifts, systems once catalogued now empty. Ortega stood by her side, eyes heavy with fatigue. It's like someone is deleting pieces of the galaxy. Patel nodded grimly. Or consuming them. The Watchers had warned them. And as messages from scattered watchtowers trickled in, a clearer, grimmer picture formed. The Harrow was not just one entity. It was Legion. A hive mind of unknowable scale, each fragment capable of devouring not just life, but memory, meaning, and history. To fall to the Harrow was to be unmade, not just destroyed, but forgotten. Patel convened a global summit, the first since the invasion. Broadcasts linked crumbling capitals, war-scarred leaders, scientists, and survivors. We stand on the edge of forgetting, Patel addressed them. If we fall, Earth itself may vanish from memory. The stars will not mourn us, because they will not remember we ever existed. Her voice was iron. We do not let that happen. We will not be forgotten. Meanwhile, the Vanguard accelerated its expansion. New warships, bigger and deadlier, were forged. The Indomitable, the Star's Ear, the Devlin's Wrath, each named to remind the galaxy that humanity was not prey. The Ghost Brigade, with Shade at its helm, recruited heavily, training soldiers to fight not just in space, but in psychological warfare. For the Harrow did not only attack with weapons. It invaded minds, memories, turning soldiers against themselves. To counter this, scientists developed neuroanchors, devices implanted in the brain, creating mental safeguards against erasure. Shade bore the first prototype. "If I forget who I am," he told his team, "remind me by making sure the bastard that did it is dead." In the depths of the Pacific, near the grave of the dread sovereign, wardens discovered something horrifying. Remnants of the Volcari ship had begun to change. Black veins of alien growth writhed beneath the waves. Metallic structures pulsated with a sickly glow. And in the darkest trenches, shapes moved, not Volcari, not human, but something in between. The Harrow's touch had reached Earth. Patel ordered immediate containment. The area was declared a no-go zone, cordoned off with automated defenses. Yet the growth persisted. They called it the abyssal bloom. "If we don't kill this here," Patel warned, "we'll be fighting it in our own bloodstreams." In space, the Vanguard's deep scouts, aboard the Iron Wraith, encountered the first physical manifestation of the Harrow, a derelict planet half consumed, its surface riddled with vast trenches of black nothingness. The crew attempted to land. Only one transmission returned. A voice, trembling, fragmented. "It remembers you from before the stars. It knows your shape. It's coming." Then silence. Patel prepared Earth for war once more. But this was not a war of territory or survival. It was a war for memory, for existence. The Harrow had stirred, and it was hungry. Beneath the Pacific, where the dread sovereign had fallen, the abyssal bloom grew. What started as twisted veins of metal and alien growth had become a labyrinth of living structures, pulsating with a sickly bioluminescence. From satellite scans, the ocean glowed faintly in patches, a bruised illumination that tainted the deep. But what troubled the Revenant most was the motion. The bloom moved, not like coral or seaweed. It spread, tendrils creeping across the seabed, reaching trenches and ridges, expanding its domain. And within it, forms emerged, humanoid silhouettes molded from metal, flesh, and something in between. The first encounters were catastrophic. Warden patrol submarines sent to monitor the site vanished. Only fragments of distorted transmissions remained, voices twisted by static and pain. Patel authorized the deployment of the Ghost Brigade. Shade stood aboard the Defiance, Earth's hybrid war submarine, preparing for deep-sea insertion. The neuroanchor in his skull pulsed gently, a reminder that his mind was shielded, as much as it could be. "We're not just diving into alien ruins," Shade briefed his team. "We're going into the Harrow's beachhead. If we don't stop it here, it won't need ships or fleets. It'll just grow until we're part of it." The team descended in drop capsules designed for deep-sea warfare. As they sank, the water darkened, light abandoning them until only their suit sensors provided guidance. Then the glow began. Streaks of sickly green and violet light pulsed from below, marking the bloom's reach. Massive spires of bone metal twisted from the seafloor, connected by sinewy bridges of living tissue. Shade's comm crackled. "Shade, this is Warden Control. Visuals confirm multiple bioforms. They're not dormant." No sooner had the message come through than movement erupted. Shapes emerged from the bloom. Humanoids with elongated limbs, heads encased in chitinous helmets, eyes burning like dying stars. They moved with unsettling grace, silent even as they swarmed. The Ghost Brigade fought back. Railguns punctured armor, plasma blades cleaved through limbs, but for every creature felled, more emerged. Worse, when killed, some dissolved into spores that infected the water, attempting to infiltrate suits and minds. The neuroanchors held, but just barely. Shade's mind flashed with visions that weren't his. A black sun rising, civilizations crumbling, names vanishing into nothing. He shook it off. "Push forward. We need to reach the core." At the heart of the bloom was the Nexus, a pulsating mass where the dread sovereign's core had once rested. It was alive, a heart beating with unnatural rhythm, veins stretching across kilometers of sea floor. Shade planted the first of the experimental warheads, neutron disruptors designed to destabilize molecular bonds at a subatomic level. The Nexus reacted violently. Tendrils lashed out, impaling a squad mate, pulling him screaming into its depths. The Ghost Brigade retaliated, unleashing their full arsenal, but the Nexus roared in response, a soundless quake that reverberated through the water, through the mind. Shade activated the detonator. A pulse of white light exploded outward, dissolving the immediate bloom, severing connections like nerves being cut. But it wasn't over. As the shock wave receded, the Ghost Brigade saw a new horror. Deeper still, beneath the Nexus, something larger stirred. A slumbering bulk, indistinct yet massive, shifting in the gloom. The bloom was not the Harrow. It was just its first breath. Shade called for extraction, but the comms fizzed with interference. Above, the Defiance tried to maintain contact, but a new signal jammed the channels. Not static, but a voice. You woke me. It was not human, not Vocari, not even Watcher. It was the Harrow itself. You remember. So I will remember you. The sea trembled. Tendrils shot upward, reaching for the surface. On the surface, Patel watched the sensor spike. She ordered nuclear torpedoes fired into the depths. Explosions blossomed, craters forming in the ocean, boiling water into steam. Yet the bloom persisted. Shade and his remaining team barely escaped, their capsules breaching the surface amidst pillars of steam and ash. They had delayed it, hurt it, but not killed it. The Harrow knew Earth now, and it was awake. In the Himalayas, Patel stood before the global assembly once again. We are out of time. The Harrow is here. If we don't stand together, we will not just die. We will be unmade. Every screen on Earth flickered with her final words. Remember who we are. Remember Earth. Because the Harrow will try to make us forget, and we cannot let it. The world knew war, but it had never faced anything like this. The Harrow's awakening beneath the Pacific was not confined to the ocean's depths. Across the globe, signs of its influence surfaced. People suffered from waking dreams, visions of black suns, dead skies, and cities where no life stirred. Some whispered of places they'd never been, yet remembered as though they'd lived entire lives there. These were the first symptoms of the siege of memory. In the Revenant Command in the Himalayas, General Patel stared at the data streams flooding the room. Sleep was a distant memory. Vigilance was the new currency. It's spreading, Ortega reported grimly. Not physically, not yet, but cognitively. Whatever the Harrow touched in the Pacific, it's broadcasting something. A mimetic virus, one of the scientists suggested. An infection of thought. Patel nodded. Then we inoculate thought. Research accelerated. Neural fortifications were developed, mental exercises, technological implants, even drugs designed to anchor memories, to preserve the self. But these solutions were temporary, imperfect. Infected individuals began to slip away, their identities eroding like sand in a tide. They became husks, walking but vacant, staring into nothingness. Earth was forgetting itself, the vanguard mobilized. Every ship in orbit was refitted with resonance fields meant to block the Harrow's signals. Satellites formed a protective net, trying to quarantine the infection. But then the Harrow escalated. Above the Pacific, clouds formed unnatural shapes. Storm systems swirled with geometric precision, lightning flashing in patterns that resembled ancient glyphs. The sky was speaking, and only some could understand. Coordinates, Shade realized, watching from the Defiance. It's giving itself a mouthpiece. A rift formed in the sea, a vortex not of water, but of space itself. From it, a spire erupted, a tower of obsidian and bone, stretching miles into the sky. Patel watched via satellite feeds. The bloom was its breath. This is its voice. The spire of the Harrow had emerged. A joint assault was planned. Every nation, every remnant military, every guerrilla force converged. The skies filled with aircraft, the seas with ships, the land with tanks and artillery. The Ghost Brigade led the vanguard, descending onto the spire's flanks. Shade at the forefront carried a new prototype, the Mnemosyne cannon, designed to anchor reality itself, to fight not just flesh, but forgetfulness. The Harrow's defenders waited. They were no longer just bloom spawn. These were humans, or had been. Warriors, civilians, entire populations lost to the siege of memory now served the Harrow. Their minds empty, their bodies puppet by whispers. Shade hesitated as his team fought. They were us. They're gone now, one soldier snapped, firing. Or we will be too. The battle was brutal. Conventional weapons faltered as the Harrow twisted reality around the spire. Bullets curved. Grenades detonated before being thrown. Soldiers forgot why they were even fighting. But the Mnemosyne cannon cut through the fog. It anchored the minds of those nearby, stabilizing them long enough to fight back. Shade led his team deeper into the spire, each level a descent into madness. Walls shifted. Hallways remembered old wars. Floors wept with voices begging to be remembered. At the spire's core they found it. The heart of the Harrow, a pulsing, amorphous mass, around which shadows danced. And in its depths something watched. It spoke, not in sound, but in memory. Asterisk, you are fleeting. But you remember. That is why you suffer. Asterisk, Shade aimed the Mnemosyne cannon. Better to suffer than to vanish. He fired. The shot tore through the heart, a beam of crystallized thought and memory, embedding Earth's existence into reality. The heart screamed, the sound like a billion names spoken and erased. The spire shook. Globally, the psychic weight lifted. People who had been fading returned to themselves, some collapsing, others weeping. But the Harrow was not dead. It whispered as the heart cracked, asterisk, we remember you now. We will not forget. We will return. Asterisk, Shade and his team evacuated as the spire collapsed into the vortex, sealing itself, for now. On the surface, Patel watched the skies clear. We bought time, Ortega said quietly. Patel nodded. Time to prepare for when it truly comes. And it will come. She turned to the camera feeds, to the world slowly recovering. Remember who we are. Remember Earth. That is our shield. And across the globe, from the ashes of the spire, new defenses began to rise. Not just weapons, memorials, anchors, proof that Earth would not be forgotten.